Our next speaker is Rodrigo Montoro with a talk titled Hunting AWS Threat Actors with Access Analyzer Policy Suggestions. This sponsors Chaser. Chaser Discriminant Firewall is a transparent NAT gateway alternative with egress filtering and monitoring. It allows for product teams to discover and update narrow allow lists for their apps' outbound connections easily. And everyone welcome Rodrigo.
All right, so first, thanks for CloudSec for having me here. It's a pleasure. It's my best conference ever. Come to US, love to be here, to hang out with guys and talk about Cloudy, right? And the talk here is AWS Threat Hunter, and so we're going to talk about threat actors with detection, threat actors with Access Analyzer policy suggestion, and so on. I have a bunch of things. And I add more things, like I was over time, and I add more things after Kay's talk. She was speaking and giving me more ideas, so I went to the speaker's room and add more slides. So I think we'll be on time. But I'm Rodrigo Montoro. I'm head of threat detection and cloud security. I live in Brazil. I live in Florianópolis. So Florianópolis is in the south of Brazil. It's an island. It's a nice place to visit if you want to go to Brazil. But in summertime, because the winter is not that cold as here, but the water is not that good. I used to do research. I have 2 patents, not related with Cloudy. I used to speak in different conferences. I'm a nerd that talks, but I'm getting comfortable with that. And proud dad and husband. I used to do Ironman triathlon, and I have a picture that can prove that I was half of this size when I was doing that. And currently, I barely could run 1 kilometer or less. And I used to do CrossFit and powerlifting stuff. So the motivation behind this talk, I think most of the guys that work with AWS and try to do detection engineer stuff, we have a bunch of problems, a bunch of challenges. And usually we find a lot of different articles saying, do that, do this, and it's hard to say that's going to work in your environment. It's pretty difficult to make sure that's going to work. And so this is one kind of blog post from AWS. It was like a year ago when they tell how you manage change that IAM, for example. And so you have all the steps like create this and this, and by the end, add those wildcards. And so I started to figure out, I don't think that's going to work because at Clouds you have more than 100 customers with different contexts and different ways of using the cloud. And so I put this on our scene, and one customer we choose, it will generate 250 alerts per month. That's not bad. That's not good, but not bad. And so the second one was 200 per week, so it started to get a bit more difficult to handle. And the third one was 15K in a day. So, but what's the most important part here? When we are trying to solve the detection problem at AWS, you need to be more context-based. You could not just trigger some detections and say, oh, that's going to work to everybody. It's not how it works. And the second one was from Invictus ER. They did this blog post a couple of time ago, but I really like it. It picked the strat rating from Datadog, all the tests that time, and compare with GuardDuty. It was 32 tests. I think there is 38 now. But it compare with the GuardDuty detections. And so the GuardDuty detects 3 of them. And that's saying that GuardDuty is bad. No, it's not saying that GuardDuty is bad, because maybe GuardDuty need more context to have the results. And so if you just throw 2, but the question is 3 of 32, right? And so Sigma has 11 detection of 32. And Sigma has some rules that if you put in production, it will be a nightmare, because it will going to trigger something as a some row. It will trigger as a misuse. So, and so based on that, I tried to create something that, in my opinion, is kind of simple, but seems could work. And my next goal is to see how it's going to work on the large scale. But so I have the agenda here: building the hunter, some scenario simulations, and some conclusions. So how we build the hunter? So the hunter is split in four parts. We have the user database, that's the profile. I'm going to speak better, each one. The CloudTrail database, the DiffDB database, and we have the detection database. And so when you step we have these 4 steps, we get the hunting signals. And I start to think, okay, I will try to put this on my scene when I start the idea, and when I start to write the call for purpose, I don't think it be possible. So hunting is the best start. So I could put later on the streamline, right? And so the user DB. What is the user DB? The user DB contains information about previous actions that a user wrote, and so it works as a baseline for expected behavior. And since I used I use policy suggestion to achieve least privilege stuff, I figured out, okay, maybe if I get the results from there, that's a policy, right? A policy similar to generate a policy, but it's a policy with all the actions that the user need. I could use as for something to create my DB. And so that's another policy suggestion. And so it's analyzed the cloud trails up to 9 days, and it generates the policy. And so it will generate something like this. And what I did, I extract all the actions and create the user DB, right? But there is some details that you need to pay attention. There is some quotas, and so the first is just one. It's not multi-thread, so you need to do one by one user. But since I'm talking about hunting, I don't need to get all my user and all my stuff. And there is this limit that I didn't point here, but the size of the cloud trail, it's a limitation too. And you could just run this 50 times per day. So that's some kind of problem that you could face. And think about that, some alternatives, right? You could use event lookup, right? So I don't know why, but I put this projector is pretty good. The image is perfect. But we could event lookup. The advantage with event lookup, there are some advantages. You need a minimum privilege, right? Because the CloudTrail event lookup permission is at view-only access, and so probably anyone could have it. And you don't need a trail, because they will see the information that is being saved like for 3 months by default by AWS. The main disadvantage is pretty slow, a lot of rate limit, and depending on the size of your account or your environment, could take forever, and it's not going to work fine. But it's an alternative. And it will output something like, I did some codes that I'm not going to release exactly today, but I'm going to release, I hope, this week, with all the stuff I'm going to show here. And so I just run here, the username, and go use the Boto, go to API, connect, and generate the list here. So another way to generate the DB, the user DB. And you could, like, if you have some better resource and everything else, like, I start thinking, like, okay, let's try to companies that maybe doesn't have all the stuff. But if you have a scene, or if you have use a team or something like that, you could use it. And besides that, it's faster. There is no limitation. You could try like some bigger range, like less than 90 days. And a question that when I talk to some guys, like, how I make sure, like, since we're talking about hunting, I'm trying to find if some keys got compromised or something like that, and how I make sure that the user DB that I created before is not infected, proven infected, right? It sounded like for months, weeks before that. And there is a way that you could create the user DB itself as a hunting. And we create a policy suggestion instead of using like 90 days, like create like small frames like per week or per day, doesn't matter, depends how paranoid you are. And run the DB analyzer, user DB analyzer, and compare with big modifications during that period. And so you have like per day or per week, and so maybe in the third week it will have some spikes, and you figure out maybe something happened here. And so that will be the output, right? And so you have all the actions that will be compared with the DB, and so I have like 35 finds. And so I could create this in a small time frames and getting compared. Okay, and so you have the CloudTrail-DB. The CloudTrail-DB is basically, it contains the user events since the user DB creation. And so like, okay, I'll pick my most privileged users using Cloud Explaining probably. I need to mention Cloud Explaining in all my presentations. and since the user DB, and so I will create the user DB for those users. And after that, I will keep looking what is different from UserDB. But after listening to the case talk, I forgot, maybe I could be like a kind of, I could create some fake CloudTrail stuff to compare my UserDB and kind of acting as a breach attack simulation because I could create a CloudTrail DB only with the malicious stuff and see like if my hunting will going to detect that and if my security operations center are going to detect that. And so we have two kinds of uses. And I did some tests with the scatter spider, like that's why I add more slides here. So. And the CloudTrail-DB create options could be event lookup. Depends like if it's just a few days, few hours, it's easy to create. Athena, CN connector. Scenarios, you could validate scenarios from your offenses team. You could use TTP from reports, right? That's what I try to, I catch the report from Permiso and try to figure out. And after that, we have the diffdb. The diffdb, basically what it does is the difference between CloudTrail and UserDB. And so all the difference I have there, I will pick those difference and that I have here in CloudDB, and then I don't have here a UserDB, and I will run against the detection DB. And so the detection DB is a collection of actions with malicious potentials, because you cannot say a action is malicious, right? Because a action is a function. So could be like some good use. And so I have previous research like Rhino, Invictus, Cloud Explain, Chris Ferrer, myself, and others. There is a bunch of, I probably missed some guys here, sorry about that. But what do? We run against this database, and this database currently, we have credential access stuff, data access, defensive agent, discover, executions, filtrations, persistence, and privilege escalation. And so you have the action, the category, the tactic, whatever, and some score, like I like score, all the things, and so, but this needs to be more testing. I used to say that's all ML, right? Montoro learning, there is no science behind here. But that's something that could really improve, and so this is going to give the hunt science. And so the current DB, I have like almost 300 detections so far, but there is a bunch of stuff to add, like Ian McKay, the data set from him, I need to analyze better and see if we get more opportunity. The floss.cloud logging that I add here, it has a lot of potentials there. But so far I have like almost 300 finds. And like, and by the end, like getting the hunt signals, I add in the score here based on detections. Then you have like no signals, low, medium, or high, or critical signs. Like this could change like time to time, but so far that's what I was testing. And so I create some scenarios and use case to prove the point. Like, fun fact, I tried to create a scenario for a nick free chat, but there is no logs at CloudTrail at that moment, so. And so I was thinking about, I need to create some dumb data to simulate, right? And so I think, okay, I will do something, I will create some user, I create some buckets, and that's, add some permissions, and so that's my dumb data. I say, it's not that real, and so it would be too easy to get good results, right? And so what I did, I get two roles that we have for our DevOps in our company. One that has administrator access, one for power users. And I use this as my dummy data. So it's not real dummy data, it's a real world data from our environment. And so those users are the base of my UserDB. The Luan, thanks Luan, it generates the policy suggestion for me, for those two users. And they have by default, that's important, like the user DB itself could be a score. And so the administrator has by default like 35 findings that's there, right? So it's common for that user. And the power user has 18 finds. So that's to have like, it's not an empty file. They have something, but my main goal is to compare the difference. And so first tool I test Prowler, because Prowler, the best CSPM, right? But Prowler, by the end of the day, is a discovering tool. And so I want to prove like, if somebody gets on my account and try to discover a bunch of things and so I test Prowler, and so the current version, I think. And I run it, that's a testing account. And the results I run against the admin user. And so it generates a lot of things. That's an interesting point. Like the Prowler, since Prowler, it's enumerating different regions. You have like high score, maybe just with a few different actions that I don't have because it will appear a lot of times. And so that's an interesting point. And so for the power user, it finds like a lot of finds because the power user uses less and less. But it's not all about like the amount of finds that you have here. It's about finding something because we are comparing something with a detection database and we're parting that the user has already some finds. And so when you have some runtime signals here, it could be low, high, or criticals. Take a look because it could be something there. So endgame, creating backdoors and AWS, basically it's create a lot of research. You can have my crates here. And so it's create a lot of, it's abuse features, right? It's not abusing some flaws, it's abuse features, right? Research that could create, and so you could make something public or cross accounts share with another account. And I test here. I generate all the tests. And so like for the admin, it's results with high signals, right? And funny that end games, it results with medium signs. So that's the nice part. Like, doesn't matter, it has less find by default, the user DB, but it has, for this case in specific, it has, the signal is smaller than the admin. And so Pacu, right? And so I just run IAM enum and run privilege escalation. It's going to generate the database here. You'll probably have 7 finds of 20 generated on that time. And for the admin, we got median results. No, for the service power user, we got median results. And for the admin, we got low results, but that needs to be put in the balance. Like if the user DB has like a high note already, and plus a low signals, it's maybe so critical, like because like if Red has a lot of finds and they are trying something different from them, could be something really bad. And so it's strat red thing, and so since I put the Invictor here, I run against all the tests, like no filters, generate a bunch of information. And so by default, it has 42 finds that it's going to provide if running on default, right? But compare with the admin, we have like 23 finds. I run all the tests, right? So, and compare with the power users, we have like 34 finds. And fun fact about the floss.cloud logging, Scott Piper released the logs like some time ago. I just run to create a database. It's like opportunities of actions, malicious actions, university, right? So there is a bunch of things going on there. And so that's some place that I want to spend more time to make sure that I could find more, improve the detection database. Probably has a bunch of cool stuff there, but I didn't have time. But not always work. For example, you get a Luan user for some tests here, and for endgame, it didn't detect. It was no detection. So it's not a silver bullet. It's a hunting stuff, right? But always remember, you could try to UserDB for small time frames and pick minor spikes each one. And last minute added, thanks Casey. Look, a scatter spider getting sassy in the clouds. I pick all the actions that was here, basically. It has like, and so the CloudTrail has like 8 detection of 11, like based on what I have, I could improve for sure. And running against all my users, we would detect if our admin user, and we are going to detect if our power user has this problem because it will trigger different ways. This is in my environment. But the funny part is like you could create UserDB in your environments usually and compare with this. And so you could keep, all right, if this hits me, I will detect. And that's a kind of breach attack simulation with no really simulation, right? And so future and conclusions, improve the detection database, new detections for sure. Analyze service difference. I have a goal like, I'm just looking for different actions, but just if some new service appear, I like to talk about uncommon service, but if new service appears, that could trigger something, improve the risk. And talked about our access level ratio based on the access level from this permission management, write, list, read. Some principal DB behavior connect for Elasticsearch and Splunk. Maybe when this is more mature, add to a string light to detect almost in real time and talk about hunting, right? But I think it's possible to add in real time. And compare exactly with Victor ER, those tables that metrics that I showed as the motivation, I want to add my detections exactly one by one to see what's going on and release part of the code, the detection table, and so on. And some conclusions, timing to create the user base is important, tuning the scoring, use cloud explain to find the most privileged users to hunt, right? You're going to hunting users that could really happen something bad first. Get information from scene is pretty fast, and context always improve the hunting. I think I'm a bit out of the time, but that's it. Thank you.
Questions? Raise your hand. I can bring the mic over.
No hard question, please. Come on, LeBron.
Great presentation. I'm curious, have you thought about, instead of like doing just a comparison against the risk threshold scores, doing like a deviation, right? So it seemed like some of those cases, it was more interesting that the deviation from the CloudTrail DB score versus what you were seeing when you ran, I forget what the last table, the detection DB score.
Oh, I didn't. I know there is a lot of room to improve here, and maybe some smart things that I'm currently doing. What I could say that compare like with a previous user DB and the CloudTrail, we'll avoid like triggering a bunch of different alerts, and it could give some signals that something is happening. But I agree that putting more science and more smart things there, that probably be a good point. I don't know if I'm that guy that will be capable to do that, but I will involve the developers at that time, so probably. But I think that could be a good point.
Any other questions? All right, let's give it up for Rodrigo.
All right, thank you.